Bear with us. I just started to record, so bear with me here. Okay. Well, wonderful, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This webinar is a part of our Education Spring series for 2001. The workshop series is sponsored by MnDOT's Office of Aeronautics and administered by the Airport Technical Assistance Program, also known as AirTAP. We are located at the Center for Transportation Studies at the University of Minnesota. So AirTAP started in 2000, is the first in its kind in the nation, offering practical yet specialized training and resources across the state for those who operate, maintain, and administer Minnesota's public use airports. Minnesota's general aviation personnel across the state have had access to targeted information and training to reduce costs and improve the safety, quality, and the overall efficiency of airport operations. AirTAP also helps staff build a community network for exchanging best practices and learning from one another. So AirTAP has 4 major service categories. One is our education and training. So in addition to this series we put on this spring, we also do an annual fall Airports 101 for those who are new or newer to the airport community. And we also put on we partner with MCOA and MnDOT to put on the annual airports conference that occurs in April. We also provide technical assistance, access to experts, and we have resources and printed material on our website. We have a quarterly newsletter and we have also targeted guidebooks. So as I mentioned, this is one workshop in a series of 8. So we've had several in March and April. This is the last one this month, and next week we have one more, understanding lease agreements. Most of them have been recorded and they are available on our website if you weren't able to make any of the previous sessions. And our website is airtap.umn.edu. So if you are new to Zoom meeting platform, just a little highlights of a little tutorial for you. So along the bottom, there's a black ribbon. There's the mute function. You can stay muted throughout the presentation. If you would like to have a conversation with Casey during the Q&A portion, you can unmute yourself and talk directly with him. There's also this video, so you can share your video again if you want to during the Q&A. During the presentation itself, you can just keep it off since no one else sees our videos anyways. There's the participation icon. This is where you can see who's also attending today. There's the chat box. Now this is where we would like you to enter your questions throughout the presentation, as well as I will be uploading the presentation materials shortly after Casey starts his presentation. And so this is where they'll be located. Share screen is live for everyone, so you don't have to touch that in this meeting today. This session is being recorded, and feel free to use reactions at any time just to get our attention. And so that's what I have for you today. And again, thank you so much for joining us. I forgot to introduce myself, so I am Catherine Stanley. I am the AirTAP program coordinator. So I'm going to hand it off to Silas Parmar.
Thanks, Catherine. For those of you that don't know, my name is Silas Parmar, aviation project manager with Bolton and Mank. I've been working in airports ever since I began my career for over 15 years now. So kind of excited about the presentation that MnDOT is putting forth today about airport lighting systems, kind of maintenance, and troubleshooting and things like that. Everyone here has lighting systems on their airport or works with them. So looking forward to hearing the information. Many of you guys are familiar with Mike Hartel. He's recently been promoted to the airport operations director at MnDOT Aeronautics with the recent retirement of Rick Bronig. So previously, Mike was solely responsible for the airport lighting systems and nav aids, but now he's also taken on Rick's responsibilities. And then new to MnDOT for the recently retired John Schroeder, who many of you guys have seen out at your airport, helping you troubleshoot your nav aids, PAPIs, reels, and lighting system is Casey Carlson. So I'll allow Mike to kind of give a better introduction for Casey, and looking forward to hearing the presentation.
Thanks, Silas. Casey joined us about 3 weeks ago. as he's been with District 2, working as an electrician for the District 2 area in the northern part of the state. He is officed out of Crookston, and that's his home territory instead of out of St. Paul. It's a little different for us. With that, Casey, he is a master electrician, and he comes out of the private sector before he joined MnDOT, working, had his own business as an electrician, doing contracts and contract work all over the state. So really a good mix of background, and now he's excited about airports. He does have a Part 107 certificate, so he can work with drone aircraft as that technology evolves as well. Casey, I think that's good. If you can want to take it from there.
Oh, thank you for that kind introduction, Mike and Silas, and also for coordinating the event, Catherine. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen here, and we'll get rocking and rolling. Okay, so I've spent some time putting together. Can everybody hear me all right? If so, please say so.
Yep, no, you sound great, Casey.
Okay,
Yep,
great. Excellent. I've spent some time over the last couple of weeks putting this presentation together. I've taken information out of our state aviation spending plan, also off of our FAA advertising circular or advisory circulars, and some of the orders that are available also. So I'd like to share the compilation of what I put together with you. We're excited to share this content with you today and spend some time with you, albeit virtual time, thanks to the times that we're living in. But with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. So I think Silas kind of mentioned it. We've had some change in the department. We had a recent retirement. The job that I'm filling in for is a replacement of Mr. John Schroeder. And I'm putting this graphic up here that says relax. I'm hoping he can relax. For those of you who know him, you know, he'll always be working on some kind of a project. Over 30 years working for Department of Aeronautics. His knowledge helped keep a lot of airport lighting systems operational over the years, minimizing downtime. And when I started in my role here, I got to spend about a week or so with John. He's been kind, and he genuinely wanted to help me in the new role and not just leave a mess. He put the time in to tell me what he was working on and how I could take the ball and run with it. And I really respect that. And as Silas also said, many of you have met John out in the field over the years. He had a knack for making repairs to any type of airport lighting. I was talking with one of my coworkers here recently who keeps in touch with John. It sounds like he's already got some projects on his workbench at home for himself and others. So I just wanted to say a few things about him. He's a real classy guy, and his experience and presence around the office is something we're going to miss. So thank you to John for your service. Also, I apologize. I had my laser pointer on there. I'll take that off. Moving on to the next slide. There's a picture of myself, and I'll turn my camera on at the end of the presentation so you can get a look at me. I have it off now for during the presentation. As Mike mentioned, I took over in the role on 3/31, March 31st. And my background, I grew up in northern Minnesota, small community named Erskine. And I've been a master electrician for 15 years and been in the industry for 22 years. And I've experienced different types of wiring methods across commercial and industrial. And as Mike said, I'm excited to bring my electrical background into the aeronautics field and work in aviation. So what are we planning to cover during the presentation? So we want to cover what types of lighting that we have out at our runways, and then kind of break that up into 3 different groups of airport class. And then talk a little bit about the importance of a good maintenance plan. And we have a few templates, which is just some starter forms that we can show you towards the end of the presentation, just to take away the daunting idea of a maintenance plan being a difficult task or something that you have to maintain all the time. It's really something that we can just use with a few short forms and keep track of our nav aids so that we can keep them up and running. So here I got a picture of an airplane and talking about what lighting systems that we can expect to see at the airport. Here on the next slide, we'll get into some of the different types of lights. Now, a lot of you have seen these lighting systems out at your airports: runway edge lighting, reels, poppies, and the approach lighting systems. So there's definitely a distinction on that fourth bullet point with the MULZER and MULZEF with an instrument landing system. We're going to have some special checks that we need to do on a yearly basis for those to keep them in compliance, both with the FAA and also just to keep up with the system so that they're up and running. So most of you folks have seen these lighting systems out at your local airports. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time breaking down what each of them are. And moving on to the next slide. Airport classifications. So if you look at the graphic there, we have precision instrument approaches for those key airports, and that's unique to the key airports. If you'll notice in the second part of the graphic, vertically guided instrument approaches would be classified as a precision approach. So that there's definitely a distinction there. And the illustration shows the minimum expectations for those classifications. So in that center graphic for intermediate, there could be a vertically guided instrument approach on both ends of that runway. And then the landing strip being typically the smallest in size of the three. And we'll get into each of these in breakouts in the next slide. Make sure I covered everything. Okay. So landing strips, visual approach only. So they may be lit or unlit. And with that, them being lit, they could be something that's ground mounted and permanent, or they could be more of a temporary stake lighting. Oops, I apologize. I got to go back. I missed it. There we go. Lighted runways consist of runway edge lighting and end of runway lights to light it up in the night. If an airport has lighting for nighttime operations and wants to be advertised for night operations, they will need to have their runway lighting energized from dusk till dawn. And that comes right out of our Minnesota administrative rules that coincide with the state statutes that govern our airports for our state. So it's something to think about. If you want to be advertised for night traffic, you got to have those runway lights on low intensity. Oops, did it again. Okay, lit runways will also require a rotating and beacon and a lighted wind cone. And that's according to FAA Advisory Circular 150-5300 there. And the advisory circular goes hand in hand with what's being required there by the state rule. So basically they're tied together. If you have that perimeter lighting, you're probably going to have, in most cases, the rotating beacon and lighted wind cone. Runway lighting, edge lighting will also consist of lurls or merles, with the latter being the more prevalent. So those merles are going to have multiple settings on them to bring up the intensity or brightness of the light. We'll get on into that on this next slide here. Lurls are energized at dusk with a photocell. So I guess lurls and merles would be covered under that. But merles have a distinction there, being that they can be controlled by that pilot radio control, so that if a pilot's approaching, they can bring up the intensity of the lights to bring their attention to their landing strip, and it will remain on in the lower of the two settings. So that's the MURLs. Getting into the intermediate airports. This is the most common airport in our state. I think, yep, Mike and I were talking about this yesterday, and it's 80 some airports. Most of our airports are in this class, with us not having as many key airports like our metropolitan areas, and the landing strips being also the smaller group. Out of our SASP 24-hour 100 LL low lead fuel is desirable typically at these intermediate airports. So a lot of times you'll see that. Pilots can land in the evening, get fuel if they need, and take back off. And we're going to have paved runways and at least one instrument approach like you saw in that graphic. And these intermediate runways are also going to have an expectation that they'll have PAPIs and reels at them. And here we have an illustration of, or a picture of our Boston Airport, some of you may be familiar with, up by my neck of the woods. Okay, our key airports, what can we see here? 5,000 or more feet of pavement and designed for heavier aircraft, and at least one precision approach like the graphic had there. And typically those MURLs will be upgraded into high intensity runway lighting. So a little bit more functionality there with 5 settings as opposed to typically 3 settings on those MURLs. So different intensity levels available on the HURLs. And the key airports may also have an approach system of some kind. MALS-F or MALS-R being the two more common, I should say, of the many different types of approach lighting systems. And as I mentioned before, there's a distinction. If you have that instrument landing system, you're going to need, with that MALS-F or MALS-R, you're going to need special yearly inspection by a technician with certificate of authority in order to maintain compliance. So we want to keep up on those systems. There's a new gentleman that's working down at our district office in the FAA, and they're starting to keep track of this a little bit more. So we definitely want to keep on top of our lighting systems so that we don't have to shut them down for repairs or compliance checks. So we could circle back to that at the end during the Q&A if anybody has any questions on that. I know Mike's got a good grasp on that as well. And they're desirable to have. And I guess if you've got inclement weather out and the pilots still need to fly their flight, those MALS-F and MALS-R systems can really come in handy to help you from your guided approach to the actual seeing out the window visual approach. Rainy, foggy, anything like that, snowing. So they're a good resource to have. And if you have any more questions on what our state policy is, our state aviation spending plan, it's currently in its circular of 2012, I believe, is current, and they are in the process. My coworkers at our aeronautics department are updating this now to a new version that hopefully they'll have coming out soon. And if you want to access this, I encourage you to take a look at our website there. There is an aviation A to Z, and we can take a look at it. It's an important tool to go onto our website. If you're an airport manager or city staff, and you can understand our views on funding and all sorts of different things, whether it's regarding repairs or additions or anything like that. And I have a sample of our website here on the next page. Just shows what it looks like. Right here, we've got that aviation A to Z, and some of our other tabs can be very useful depending on whether you're looking for licensing or publications that are coming out with updated information. Let's see, funding, licensing, cool drone systems. We've got some information in here and how we're dealing with drone traffic in the state of Minnesota. So our website is where it's at. I'd encourage you to take a look at it, and it's a good resource. Switching gears here, I'd like to talk with you a little bit about maintenance plans after we leave the website there. So why do we have to maintain these systems? What's the risk if we just use them until they no longer function? And those, of course, are rhetorical questions, but we want to think about what the intent or purpose is by putting a plan in place to stay on top of potential issues that could arise in our nav systems so that we can keep them up and running as much as we possibly can. And it's definitely a safety factor. If a pilot flies into an airport in the evening and 4 or 5 of your runway edge lights are out and you can't tell at a high speed, exactly where you are on the runway because of them being out, they may still be in compliance technically, probably not, but they may still be. But it's more of a pride thing in taking care of it, staying on top of it, and keeping your airport safe. So definitely think about staying on top of it for that reason. Pilots use those visual aids to assist in their travel throughout the runway and the airport. And if a pilot-controlled lighting system is unusable, it may create hazards, especially if they don't know about it. So skipped assessments like this of lighting issues tend to snowball into greater problems. And we just want you to think about it and take pride in how well you keep your airport maintained. The first impression that people get when they touch down, I see it says town down. I apologize. Oh, to your town when they touch down. So it could be business class that have come in on a business flight and they have business in your city. They come in the evening and half of our nav aids aren't working. It just might put a sour taste in their mouth about what they're going to see when they enter the town. So, and don't set off a chain reaction by ignoring an issue. A lot of times, a short that's starting to develop, whether it's in a transformer underneath your light fixture that's transforming your series circuit voltage into your voltage, which is distributed to the light fixture. If we can keep an eye on some of that stuff, whether it's insulation on wires cracking, keeping an eye on our regulator voltages to see if that regulator is working extra hard to keep your circuit operational in the field. That's stuff that we want to be aware of, because if we do get a short in that wire and it shorts through the can on that light fixture, whether it be in runway edge lighting or anything like that, a threshold light, a taxiway light, it just provides an opportunity for a hazard to happen. And those shorts are going to find their way home to try to keep the circuit complete. So if we can catch it earlier, a lot of times it will be a lot less catastrophic. There won't be a short circuit in the field that wrecks some electronics or wrecks some light fixtures themselves. So want to try to stay on top of that. And the next point, if you have pilots that are habitually coming to your airport, and if they see nav aids that aren't operational, or not being fixed in a timely manner because they think, well, shoot, I was just here 2 weeks ago and these lights are still out. No, we realize sometimes it's on hold for parts. There's nothing you can do. But if pilots, as an abstract to that, if pilots see that you are staying on top of it, and it's like, man, they sure got that fixed fast. That's a good thing, and that's the way you want to keep your airport. So something to think about. We don't want that same pilot to go to the next airport and then the next town over and start conducting more of his business there. So basically, keep your front lawn looking nice, so to speak. Oh, just make sure we didn't have one more. Oh, yep, I apologize. How often should we be checking? So in our lighting maintenance plan here, I've gone through some of the, or I will go through some of what the FAA tells us about how often that we should be looking at these things. And they have some charts, and in our templates, we'll try to extrapolate the different charts that the FAA gives us. And we're going to try to build a form that's easy to use, like I aforementioned, and we can take it out in the field, do a report possibly. And if it's John Jones that does it the first time, and it's Casey Carlson that does it the second time, and Mike does it the third time, the form's going to look the same. You can put it in a 3-ring binder and keep good track of what your navies are doing. So we'll take a look there. Lighting maintenance plan is a tool that we can use to assess our status, determine if we are meeting the design standards. And then I mentioned that before about trying to track things or find things before problems arise. And it's going to save us money because something breaks down and it affects other stuff on the circuit. And if we could have caught it earlier, our maintenance costs are going to be more when we have to call a contractor out to the site. So let's take a look at a few points from that FAA advisory circular. And this is right out of the advisory circular from 2014. And it kind of gives you a matrix or an idea of what the FAA is expecting us to be doing as far as how often to check certain things. And if you look at that last column there, it's unscheduled. That's just telling us for a runway or or elevated edge light, taxiway edge light, go out and check that stuff as often as you can. But it's not mandatory to do it within a certain frequency of time. Some of you folks probably too are checking these more often than what the minimums are, and that's great. But we're talking about the minimums here, so we want to make sure to hop in the vehicle and take a cruise out and make sure we're looking at things. The key again being just to document this. If you take a drive in your vehicle out on the field, and you're going to take a look at the condition of your system, and you think to yourself, well, let's see here. Light number 15 had a missing globe. Light number 17 had a bulb that was cracked. If we just have that simple form, 1-page form, and we can mark it down, we won't have to try to use memory when we get back to try to think about ordering parts or lining up a service request. And this is a similar one. This just talks about your reels and some of the different things that you're going to be keeping an eye on for those. Definitely that, vegetation is one of them, especially in the summer. We don't want to not be able to see them, and keeping the lenses clean if you can, keep the bird droppings off of them, and etc. And in this next slide, I wanted to draw attention to your PAPI lights that the pilots are using when they're making their approach. And look at how many of these items here are monthly tasks. So those are kind of the one you want to babysit and make sure that they're staying in compliance. And I know pilots expect that they're either going to be working properly or no damned off, so that even if they're running, you don't expect them to be on, calibrated, and working. It just gives the pilot a heads up on that. Some of our nav aids, of course, are, excuse me, are basic in nature, like your runway edge lighting and such, but those PAPIs are full of electronics and different control boards in there that keep them running. So moisture can be a huge issue on those, and insects getting into them there on point number 7. So keep an eye on them. Okay. On this slide now, the 3 previous slides I showed you were from the advisory circular. And now this new order is about to be implemented on 5/5. So that's like in a week. And it's going to give us, I guess, a lot more detail on exactly how the maintenance of each individual system will occur. So we need to have this on our radar. It's coming out. I want you guys to, and gals, to take a look at this, look it up on the FAA website. And they're going to be trying to hold us to this standard. So we definitely want to be keeping in compliance so the FAA doesn't get grumpy with us. I wouldn't say that it's chock full of brand new information. It just more so spells out what kind of the processes were, what we were already doing. So we'll take a look at a chart out of that. So right here is just what I pulled up out of this new order that's come out from the FAA, and it deals with the VOSI and the POPI lights, whichever you have. And if you'll notice here, in the standards and tolerances, that's going to tell us, you know, when it was originally commissioned, where did we expect the tolerances exactly to be at in order to be compliant for the flight check. And if you'll notice, bullet point over here for section 5, subnote 34, and that's going to tell us about, you know, it says visually check operation of all lights in the lamp box alignment, and then going down here, it's talking about things like the tilt switch and such. And if you go to that section 537, which I have in the next slide, it's going to tell us about that tilt switch adjustment and give us more detail on what we need to do in order to do it properly. So just in summing that up, it's adding information to what we're already doing and giving us a better idea of what the expectation is for it. Okay. So the templates, if you'll excuse me here, I'm just going to take a quick drink. All right, I've been reviewing the FAA info, and I talked some about what we were putting together for these templates. They are in Excel format, and it'll be nice to be able to customize them for what we have. Some guys at an airport might say, well, I don't like that. That needs to be this, or we can add this, add something to it and make it better, or whatever. But it's something that we can customize, get it how you want it, and then just keep it on a form on your desktop when you want to print out a maintenance sheet. Simple, you open it up, print out a new copy, and you've got it for your binder. And then we talked about no matter which staff member does the report, it's going to look the same. Just the signature will be different. You're checking the same boxes. And these templates are in progress. I've been working on one for the reel and one for the runway edge lighting. And I hope to have them completed soon. I don't have them all the way done yet. The plan is late summer, early fall to have them ready so that whatever lighting systems you have at your airport, you can contact our department. We can just send you over a few files and you can use them. So again, it's not mandatory that you take up our maintenance plan, but we would suggest it on a number of fronts that I've been covering here. So, and here's a sample of one of them forms. I'll let you guys kind of look through this a little bit. I've got the runway number. Another thing that's big is to have the model number of the equipment. If you have some less experienced staff go out and do an inspection and they say, hey, something's wrong with the reel, we need to do something with it. If you can call in to us and say you're having problems with your reel, you can tell us the model of it, the model number. We may be able to assist with some troubleshooting, get in touch with the right party that can help get your systems operational again. I've got a couple of dates on there for quarterlies and annuals. You may have noticed in that earlier FAA document about certain lights needing to be checked at certain increments of time. So here's where you can track that and say, hey, on June 15th, our next quarterly is due, so we need to make sure we check all the boxes to keep it in compliance. So what I'd like to do, or what my plan is to do, is to put a list of tasks that are definitely required for your certain times a year, whether it be quarterly or annual, and to keep a list so that if you go out there with the same inspection form and you're going to do your annual, you can reference what's needed for your annual, and it's all extrapolated right out of that advisory circular and that order, and it can make for an easy, quick check. So that's one I did for a reel. I think I have another one here. This one I did for edge lighting. So the edge lighting is going to be a little bit different. For that reel, you maybe have two at one end of one airport, or you might have 4 of them, 6 of them on your airport. And that's a small number of them. But for these runway edge lights, we have to think about there being hundreds of them potentially out in the field. So we're going to have to write down in the deficiency description, light number 51 is a cracked, or it's a cracked lens, or it's crooked or unlevel. Pick your item out of the red text up here, and you can just write a simple fixture number down, fixture 56, like I say, and put keynote number 6. The rubber gaskets are worn or cracked. Oh, I guess I got a fixture number column right over here. And then the date you discovered it and the date you repaired are going to be huge. It helps to give us some accountability. If you see something was damaged or needed replacement or repair back in February, and you get to be June, July, and you haven't done anything with it, well, that's probably not a good thing. So I want to work on these forms along with my team and get it so it's just a tool. And I think it can be helpful for us. So. Okay, so we did find something that broke. What are we going to do? What needs to happen with it? So is it something simple that we can fix, or do we need to, or that the airport staff can take care of, or do we need to get in touch with somebody on it? How big of a problem is it? We want you to feel comfortable calling us up if you have something you're not sure about. In our department, among our department, we've got a lot of experience, and we may be able to help you get something up and running faster than what you hope. So please use us as a resource. Again, just wanted to touch on safety here. If you are out changing bulbs or think you're going to make a slight repair, just remember that series high voltage circuit that's out there for both your runway lighting, your edge lighting, your taxiway lighting, those PAPIs. Especially if you had a short in that circuit and it was working extra hard to keep that circuit operational, we're going to have a lot of voltage running through there. And even if you have some systems that are turned off during the day and you think, well, I'm safe because the photocell's not going to turn that whole circuit on. Just remember that with your MERLs and HURLs circuits, we think of pilots turning those circuits on for testing or for making their landing. or for maintenance staff turning them on with their radio click. But just remember that anybody can drive by on the road with that frequency into their radio and activate that lighting. If you were just out there for a simple bulb change and you had a short in one of those fixture cams, you know, and you're expecting it to be off, so you think you're safe, it's best to just shut it off. Just shut it off. And the NOTAMs have got a lot easier to deal with in that NOTAM manager. So throw a NOTAM out there, go out, maintain your system, you know, obviously lock it out so that it can't be turned on. And then you can feel safe and content when you go out there, and always try to view it as a live circuit until you've verified otherwise. So like I said, larger issues, get in touch with us, with our staff. I've put a link in here. I showed you guys the Arrow webpage earlier, but this one dials us right into navigation systems contacts. And that's going to be Mike and myself and the rest of our team. So we'll look at that in our next slide. Bang, we're right back on the website here. So you got our aviation and aeronautics page. All I've done here to get us to this point is simply to go to the aviation A to Z tab and then went right into navigation systems, which is going to be all of our signs and lights and such. And off on the right-hand side there, you can see our team members and our phone numbers. And we want you to feel free to give us a call. And we want to dedicate ourselves to trying to get back to you as soon as we can. So. And cruising right along here, we've got some, I've got a few photos that I wanted to show you. Some of you may have seen a couple of these photos because they were taken by my predecessor, Mr. Schroeder. So I've used a couple of his photos because I haven't had time to get out and generate some of my own. But we want to keep on top of our periodical assessments. So if you're out with our template and you're looking through your lighting and you think, what are some of the things I might see? So here we have a picture I found on the web, and we've seen this out at our own airports. I've personally been to an airport and seen some of these globes missing. If the retaining ring starts to slip or come off of those flanges, eventually that globe is going to start to jiggle on there a little bit until ultimately it just falls off. And of course, as soon as it falls off, it's no longer keeping the moisture out. It's a moisture trap. It's catching moisture now, and you're getting water into your light sockets. And this is one of the things I talk about that can be a chain reaction. One fixture can start wrecking the next one just through a short in the circuit. Here, I believe this may be out of a PAPI light and got some water in there. This is one of John's pictures. Once that water gets in there, it can be destructive. It just starts rusting and corroding on things. You can look at even all those screw heads in detail. They're full of rust. It's like it's a matter of time. So if we can get on top of that stuff and get in there and clean that up and maintain it, it's not going to be an issue for us. Here we've had the mice at work nibbling away on those wires. Those wires last for so long undisturbed, but once they're exposed to oxygen and moisture, they're just going to oxidize over time. And we're going to start to see problems and failures. So, and here's a picture of, it looks like we had to tilt down either a beacon or a obstruction light of some sort that's been tilted down to take a maintenance assessment. And here we see these wide holes here. And of course, our electrical code is going to state too, generally speaking, that we've got to plug all these holes. It's amazing what mice can get up into. And so just plugging and sealing is going to help our components last a lot longer. And here we've got the sun has been using its power to work on this PVC jacket of this flex. Once we start to get those cracks into that flex, it's going to start accepting water. That stuff's not meant to be exposed like that. There's corrugations in it that allow it to be flexible. So. And here we've got almost the same issue. It just was caused by something else. It wasn't the sun baking on it. This was, you know, a squirrel or a mouse or something that got up here and thought he was hungry for some rubber PVC jacket. So again, we're thinking about letting moisture in there. Just right at this crack at the bottom here. If you think about all the surface area, if this is the high point, the moisture working its way down, and it's going to get inside that crack. It's going to sit right here on this lip until it works its way in here and fills this canister. So we definitely want to address issues like that, take care of it before it becomes an issue. And here's a picture of our little friends here, disgusting little buggers. They want to have a home too, I guess. And if we look here, I've just got a picture of weather stripping missing. And so our weather stripping is something we want to keep intact to keep the moisture out. Staying on top of our maintenance can make all the difference. We want to prevent those outages, and those long-term outages can be costly. So try to avoid it if you can. Just running up to the end here. I got 4 or 5 more slides, so we're about wrapping up. One item we want to talk about is our purchasing contracts. We've got some contracts in the works with ADB Safegate and Airport Lighting Company to get some contract pricing in effect. And what we want to do is try to lock in some good pricing so that an airport manager can call to those companies and say, hey, what's my price on this? And typically we can get 10% off, and it's easy, it's quick, it's seamless. And it also allows us some versatility, because if we have these contracts in place and you had more than one company making a certain component, you can just order right off the list and not necessarily get the cheapest or, you know, whatever's available, so to speak. So we want to get that pricing wrapped up as a great tool for airport managers to be able to order something when they need it and not have to go through a solicitation process. And here I've just got us on a screen here. You saw some of this off my webpage slides. Got myself with my number there, and Mr. Hartel, my supervisor. Over on the right-hand side here, I've got state airport coordinators listed. These used to be our AB reps, and we want to reach out to them for things like funding, planning, anything like that. They're not going to probably deal with daily problems with one of your nav systems, but certainly keep them there as a resource, and they can typically point you in the right direction. They're a good person to have their number on your phone, put it that way. And then I've got a few references here just showing where I got my information today. And there's just a tag in there about some of my picks coming off the internet. Hey, we made it. That's the information that I have for you today. And I will pull up my webcam here. And I don't know if any of you folks have any questions. You're more than welcome to say them now. So thank you a lot for your time. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. Looking through the questions, Charity has written, I'm curious if anybody's had success finding parts for airport lighting equipment outside of purchasing directly from the manufacturer. As an example, we are in search of a photo cell for a Poppy that doesn't seem to be commercially available from local electrical suppliers. Very expensive from the Poppy manufacturer. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely something that we have resources for through the different companies that we're working with. If you can reach back out to us on what brand you have and such. I see that Ben is kind of tried to address that too. But it's definitely something, if you reach out to us, we may have a second resource for your component that you're looking for. So get in touch
Yeah,
with us,
Charity,
Charity.
the other thing that you all can, we actually have a warehouse of, John was excellent at storing old parts. So depending on what system you have, you know, there just might be a head sitting in the warehouse that has the photoselenite you need. So feel free to reach out to us. We're just digging through that stuff and getting it inventoried. But you know, if we know which airport it is, we'll dig through our stuff and see if we got something to help you.
Yep, and dovetailing off of that, we definitely want to do what we can to help you get your airport up and running again, so that you don't have to have a component out in the field that's causing you to have to NOTAM a service out. So let's see here. No other questions in the chat group. Did anybody else have any questions off the top of their head, just based off of what we were reviewing there today? Feel free to speak up if you have anything.
Well, Catherine, I think we got it.
Yep.
Hand it back to you.
Yeah, well, you guys know their contact. So if you think of questions, feel free to email them directly to get your questions answered, and they're a great resource. So yeah, you know, thank you, Casey and Mike, for putting this presentation together. Casey, you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and I want to thank everyone for attending today. We really valued coming, and let us know what you want to also see for us to put on. So please reach out to us at AirTAP for future trainings as well. So if no one has any questions, you know, we'll just we'll close this training out for today. And we have one more next week. It's understanding lease agreements. So.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. I